question for Sam. Your Lestat is a fascinating character, and I think your portrayal of his contradictions and his emotional struggles are really interesting. He's a very lonely creature, and he seems to, he clearly really wants to create a connection, an unorthodox family connection with Louis. How are you able to approach this character in such a human way and make audiences feel sympathy, even though he's a monster?
Well, that's Anne Rice, I would say. Yeah, I just kept going back to the books. That's what she created, really, with her vampires. Mary Shelley as well with Frankenstein, where you go into the psychology of a monster, so you're seeing things from their point of view, and so you do have empathy for these, monsters, these creatures, and you know their backstories. I mean, we don't talk about it, in those two episodes. We do touch on it a little bit in the series, and obviously you see it much more in Louis' life, and you see how Louis holds on to the echoes of his humanity, which you can bring in to the monster, because you carry that history with you. Also, Lestat has had some pretty crap experiences, and all the people who loved him, or who he loved, have abandoned him. So I have a lot of empathy and love for Lestat. He is problematic. So yeah, I mean, I think Anne Rice really just created that character, and I just kept going back to the books, and Roland, did such an extraordinary job of translating it and bringing her work to life. And I just, always back to the books and looking for those scenes that you can translate.
So Sam, from the beginnings of the vampire traditions in literature and in theater, there's often been a gay subtext, but for this adaptation, subtext becomes text.
Yeah, I would say it's not subtext. Really, because in Anne Rice it's pretty damn clear. So it's not subtext become text, it's just text is now being text. So yeah, and I think it should be. We're going to do Anne Rice, we may as well do Anne Rice properly. Yeah.
I mean, again, I feel like it seems like the strategy of this adaptation, in this area too, kind of lays bare and opens up the character to understand understand Lestat and his sadness and his the power dynamic of being other in that society, that being other extends in many different directions. And so I'm curious, when you were first talking to Roland and Mark about the character, was that always a central part of being a Lestat that was kind of the best version of this modern retelling of this?
I need to try and work out what the question is. You're talking about his otherness,
yes.
His vampireness. Yeah.
Well, his otherness as a vampire and as a person, a man without a country, a person who has come to the West to colonize, come to America to colonize for the vampires, and someone who is gay, and there's all sorts of angles that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean he's not there to colonize. He's there to go and sort of live out a human life. He's gone. He's I don't know if you want me to tell you the whole history of the book, but he's come from some pretty intense experiences where he's learned the history of vampires and things like that, and Lestat has come over to Europe to get away from the catechism of humanity and the way that's kind of slapped on top of the vampires, that you're gonna, that it's all about self-flagellation and Christianity, Catholicism, that we're monsters, and as a monster, you have to serve Christ by being a servant of the devil. And that's sort of like what you're a monster, wake up and serve Christ, which is sort of what he's discovered in his past. And I think Lestat thinks that is garbage. And I'd much rather have a good time, and I'd much rather celebrate myself, because he didn't get a choice. He didn't get to choose to become a vampire. He was forced into it, and I think we commented it on the show that all vampires are born out of trauma. That's why people identify with them so well, because they are traumatic, painful beings, and often that's sexual trauma as well. But so he's come to New Orleans to get out of that, to start his own new life, really. So and I think his bisexuality, his pansexuality has always been a part of that character when he was human, as before he was a vampire, and I think that's something he's always embraced as well. It's also quite heavily embraced in the vampire world as well. So it's a nice space. that one. And then once you become a very powerful being, the mess of humanity, all of these rules and things, it don't matter. And I think that's what he's trying to say to Louis. It's like, hey, we're really above all of this. You don't need to worry about it. And it's a huge error on his part.
It's a big part of their tension.
Yeah.
It's like,
because he doesn't.
You can afford to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And Lestat doesn't understand that. He's got a long way to learn, and he learns from Louis, and that's why he loves Louis. Because he realizes that this is somebody who I need. Yeah, to teach me things. Sorry, that was a bit of a tirade. I haven't slept. I literally got off a plane from Australia a day ago. Sorry.
Welcome.
You're doing great. You are.
Mark, I want to talk